What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are going to continue progress on the Gas 450 build. Obviously got a lot to do to this thing and there are quite a few pieces missing that will stop progress eventually, but one of the main things is suspension and triple clamps. Those are currently being done and also on order, so hopefully we'll have those in our possession soon. But for today's video I thought we would go ahead and install these foot pegs first of all because well, I love a good set of foot pegs. But in order for this thing to be properly secured to the stand so it doesn't fall over while I'm working on it, I want to have, you know, kind of a tie down going from foot peg to foot peg and attached to the stand. I really love these foot pegs. I'm very picky. These are probably, aside from what bar bend I run, probably one of the most picky parts on the bike as far as controls go that I love. I don't know, just the traction you get with these to the boot is amazing, and the fit and finish of these is awesome. These are made by Moto Stuff. I highly recommend, if you're in the market for foot pegs, checking these out. I love them. I run them on the other gas. So we're gonna go ahead and install these right now, and then I think next what we're gonna do is probably put the airbox on, maybe get to some of the wiring and the throttle body. Whatever other progress we can get done today, we will do it. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this thing on a tripod, and we'll get some clips putting this thing together. If you've ever had the pleasure of taking off or putting on a pair of KTM, Husqvarna, or Gas foot pegs, for whatever reason, I don't know, this spring is so hard to bend, and it's even scarier actually taking these things off because it reminds me of using a spring compressor on like a car. So you're just waiting for something bad to happen. Pretty difficult to get on, so enjoy watching me struggle putting these things on. Alright, so we got both foot pegs mounted up. Definitely a tough process. Those springs are under a lot of load, but then again, I don't ever really remember my foot pegs getting stuck up from like digging my pegs in a rut and getting mud caught in there, so maybe there is quite a good reason for those things being under such a good load. I only managed to cut myself one time, so we will call that a win in my book. Moving on, we're gonna go ahead and put the throttle body on. I kind of mixed them up earlier, but put the throttle body on because that goes between the air boot and the engine. So get those two things put on and then maybe start to work on some of the wiring, and then kind of dig through some of the parts that I have to see what else we can do to make some progress on this bike today. Alright, so the throttle body and the subframe are all on. Everything that goes on the subframe never really came off, so that was super easy. Obviously the bike looks a little funny right now with no linkage and the swing arm hanging down like that. That stuff goes together all pretty easy. This is always my scariest part. Luckily, pretty much all the manufacturers, at least Honda and KTM and Husqvarna and Gas, they don't use any, like, all the plugs are always different, so you can't really plug in anything wrong. It's more about the routing of everything. Fortunately, I do have this bike over here, which I've already taken the seat off, to kind of get a good look at the way that the wiring is run. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of use this as a guide because it has been a pretty long time since I took this thing apart. So it's not, I don't know, I'm pretty confident that I remember how it all goes. It's just nice to have kind of a guide to check base with. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start feeding this wiring harness through and check back in with you guys here in just a second. so most of the wiring harness is ran. Obviously I need to add a few zip ties in some spots to kind of secure everything, make sure nothing moves. I still got to do the front portion of the bike. Before I went any further, I wanted to point this out. If you do have anybody powder coat your frame, you're trying to make it look cooler, whatever, be sure there's some important grounds like this one where my powder coater at Specialized, they kind of masked it off before they powder coated it. Those are really important to get a good solid contact metal to metal. Before I went ahead and secured that, I wanted to point that out. There's also another one, or another two, that bolt onto this. I think it's like a distributor or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what these things are called, so sorry for my lack of verbiage here, but yeah, both of these bolts, and underneath that it's hard to see on camera, but both of those where they mount to the frame need to be metal to metal contact, so you can't have any powder coat between the two. So be sure that those are both exposed metal before you get a good ground to them. I'm gonna go ahead and secure this one and then we'll update you guys here in a second. But we made a lot of progress on this thing today, so super stoked about that. All right, so wiring is all ran for the most part. We did get that important ground bolted up, and then starter bolted up, and spark plug, all that kind of stuff is all plugged in, as well as everything else for the most part. Everything in the front end, just kind of waiting for you know, the clamps and the bar setup. So oh, one thing that I forgot to point out is I always kind of wait to put the actually leave the positive one covered by its own rubber booting, and then don't plug in the battery at all. The reason that I do that is in case I'm working on it later down the road and I accidentally bump the starter. I don't want this thing to turn over without any oil or water in or anything like that. There is no oil in the engine, so if you are kind of in this situation where there's no oil and you're building a bike, then I definitely suggest not plugging in the battery, because that could be pretty detrimental and you have to pull the thing all apart again, start over from scratch. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. If you don't already subscribe, like the video, that does a lot for me. Tell your friends about the build, and check out Sealy Speed Factory. And we will see you in tomorrow's video.
Aside from my soul.